New York.
Apple.
Hot dogs.
Dollar.
Hollywood.
Democracy.
Freedom.
Rock and roll.
Wall Street.
Statue of Liberty.
Los Angeles, California.
McDonald's.
Jeans.
Bubblegum. Video games. Nintendo.
What's so great about America?
Every Saturday night, 7 to 9 p.m., explore American culture and language.
With Master Steve,
Ina MK,
And Hazva QT.
tune in to find out about what makes America so great.
The Great American Weekend. Listen exclusively on Radio Van 103.1.
Also, watch us on the Radio Von Facebook page, website, and mobile app.
And welcome to the Great American Weekend.
Hello. We're here again. It's Saturday, and we are all set and ready for our next episode, which is 4th of July.
But it's not 4th of July yet.
Is July 3rd, but everyone prepares.
Oh, but wait a second.
It's 29th of
It's the 29th.
June.
Well, yeah, it'll be the 29th of June.
Oh, God.
The 4th of July is one of those holidays that's very unique because you know when it is just by the name, but you don't know why it is just by the name. You know, like Christmas. Well, when is Christmas? You know, when is Easter?
Yeah.
It's like March 8th, you know?
And they actually don't call it like Independence Day, which is the day of the celebration. They call it the 4th of July.
Yeah, they call it the 4th of July.
And how did that all start?
Well. It's a long story.
But before we introduce the story, I would like to introduce my co-hosts, Hazva QT, Master Steve, and this is the Great American Weekend.
With Ina MK.
Thank you. And also, I'd like to remind our listeners that they can watch us live on www.radiovan.fm. Also, our Facebook page, which is Radio Van FM 103.1. And also the frequency, of course, which is 103.1. And our application,
Oh, the app. Yes. There's an app for that.
Yeah, there's an app, Radio Van app, smartphones.
Radio Van's got you covered, guys. If you need your Great American Weekend, we got you.
And I would like
to
announce that we have an exclusive show tonight. We're gonna welcome after this little break.
After the upcoming commercial break.
After the upcoming commercial break, we're going to welcome Human Rights Officer at the U.S. Embassy in Yerevan, Summer Bessire-Briers. I hope I pronounced this correctly. And so, many people...
Now you know how I feel.
Yeah.
Arama, Hazama,
This is a cultural exchange, okay?
Hazmataz QT.
Hazmat?
Hazmat Q-tips.
So how do Americans celebrate?
Oh, well, the first thing that comes to my mind, I mean, I'm sure you probably have this too. It's barbecue and fireworks. That's like the first thing that enters July 4th. Every July 4th, I would wait, because I was in New York, I would wait for the moment that my Uncle Gatto would say, come with me in the car. We're going to go to Chinatown and illegally buy fireworks because in New York it was completely illegal, but in Chinatown somehow, some way, the Chinese know, they invented fireworks, so it exists there somehow, and we would go get these awesome fireworks, and I would go crazy.
Well, what kind of fireworks? I mean, are you talking like?
I'm talking about
the big
show.
Fireworks?
The big show.
The big show fireworks?
Oh my God. We had Roman candles, we had the sprinklers, we had like the whole gamut, and then the ones that come in like a big cake, and then you just light it and you watch it. One year, we lit a tree on fire accidentally, and the firehouse came because the neighbors.
Yeah.
But yeah, barbecue, like hot dogs and hamburgers, that like comes from, I mean, like that's the...
Slash and burn 4th of July. I mean, sorry, slash and burn farm. Never mind.
What'd you do for 4th of July?
Well, when I was younger, when I was really little, I mean, we knew like the tradition of the fireworks and everything. But my family, my dad's side of the family, we have a lake cabin in northern Minnesota. So we would go up there.
Oh, nice.
And so we usually missed the big fireworks displays and stuff like that because we would be up kind of in the middle of nowhere. There were no big towns nearby, so there were no big firework displays. But fireworks were illegal in Minnesota as well, but you could buy them across the border in Wisconsin. So sometimes somebody would go and get some little bottle rockets or Roman candles or little things like that, black cats.
I love that thing about the states where there is the neighboring state or the other state beyond the state is the one where it's legal and you have to like cross the border to get it and then smuggle it into your own place. I love that part of it too.
Oh yeah, well, and they're so not shy about it too. Like you would cross the border right into Wisconsin and there would be like the biggest fireworks store in the entire state.
Yes,
within walking distance of the border between Minnesota and Wisconsin.
A huge barn that has where it's just like fireworks huge.
Yeah. If that place went up in flames, it would cause an earthquake in central in the Midwest, and there are no fault lines there.
We have a law that after 11 o'clock at night, all the fireworks are forbidden. But sometimes during the holidays,
Armenians are so good; they follow that rule all the time.
When did that law come into effect?
Right.
Because I've never noticed that.
Yeah, but I know.
That's what you're going to say, right?
It's my birthday, 12:30 at night. I'm going to put off a bunch of fireworks. And these are like the fireworks that you can see from like miles around.
Yeah, and you can hear when you sleep.
Yeah,
actually.
like anywhere in the center, you can hear and see them. That's the kind of fireworks that Armenians are into.
I honestly
like the stuff that we would buy when we were kids.
Yes.
I mean, it's the little stuff. It's like in your yard.
Sprinklers.
Yeah. The sparklers and
I can hear the logic of someone in Armenia being like, "Arapir, is Zinjtona, Dasti Ergus Nari Donek," and then they just go and they light it at like 12 midnight, and then just explosions. Then who cares about the neighbors,
Yeah, because holiday is holiday for everyone.
For everyone.
Your birthday
that's actually
is my birthday.
That's a great motto. That's a great motto for Armenia and Independence Day. It's like, our holiday is a holiday for everyone.
Yeah, your house is my house. Your birthday is my birthday.
Your wife is my wife.
Well, yeah, we also do barbecue. But barbecue, Armenian barbecue is different from American barbecue. I think we've talked about this before.
Oh, yeah.
It is very much so.
But still, your barbecue is my barbecue.
Yes.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, Perman.
Yeah, well, here it's, you have, you've got a grill to do barbecue? Yeah, great. And then they start the fire and there's no, like, grill there. Like, well, how are you going to cook the meat?
It's like,
you got to put it all on skewers. It's like,
exactly.
Okay, yeah, all right. I've been looking.
For a grill?
Yeah.
Is there?
No. We've got a fireplace on our balcony or in our yard kind of area. And I've been wanting to buy a grill, but we can't find one the right size. And I'm looking for somebody to make one.
Just make one.
So we could do steaks and burgers on the fire. And people are like, why would you want to do that? You just skewer everything. What kind of barbecue are you talking about? I'm like, okay, never mind.
If you find someone, let me know because I want to barbecue properly. I mean, like the grill marks and the thing.
I love horovats,
yes.
But steak sometimes needs to be on an open flame.
I 100% agree. Thank you.
It's good that you agreed on something here in the studio, guys.
Because it wasn't politics.
Yes, it was food.
I would like to remind our listeners who just tuned in that we're going to have a episode on 4th of July tonight. And right now, after the break, we're ready to welcome in our studio Human Rights Officer at the U.S. Embassy in Yerevan, Summer. And I think she will give us a hint on how to pronounce it.
I'm going to quiz her on the Bill of Rights.
My guess it's Bessire-Briers.
Briers.
Oh, Briers. I totally messed that up. Never mind. We'll ask her.
Stay tuned. This is the Great American Weekend, and we will be back shortly.
Come and hang with us every weekend. It'll be a blast.
A blast?
Yeah, a good time.
No, come chill with us. It'll be cool. chill?
Yeah, relax, hang out.
Come chew the fat with us
Yuck! No way! Join us!
on the Great American Weekend, where we'll help you decode American slang.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend here on Radio Von 103.1 FM, Yerevan, Armenia.
July 4th.
Yeah, this is our July 4th
coming
episode.
soon.
And we still haven't, we have a guest.
Yeah,
We have a guest.
welcome. Applause.
So, Summer Bessire-Briers.
Yeah,
right?
you did it.
And she is the Human Rights Officer at the U.S. Embassy here in Yerevan. You're going to help us talk a little bit about Independence Day and those sorts of things.
And we
but
need to make
first-
sure if you're comfortable on the red honesty couch.
Is that what it is?
Absolutely, 100%. I'm
Great.
nothing but honest.
Great, let's go.
So, what's your background? The State Department brought you here to Armenia, but how did you decide to, start working for the government? Where are you from?
Did you pick your job or did it pick you?
Well, thank you guys so much for allowing me to be here. It's an honor to talk with you this evening, learn more about what you're doing here. Yes, I've been with the U.S. Embassy in Yerevan for almost 3 years now.
Oh, wow.
So actually, my family and I will be departing on July 4th,
Oh.
early morning, because I've completed the 3 years. So
Oh.
it's been just an amazing time here. Really interesting. Obviously, so many interesting political and social changes happening in these 3 years.
Revolutionary changes.
Yeah, so it's been a very interesting time to observe Armenia. But so I got into the State Department a while ago. My background is in social work. I have my master's in social work. And I was working in New York City. I went to Columbia University where I got my master's in social work. We have some Columbia fans in the house.
I got my master's in modern European studies.
Oh,
from
we're practically
Columbia.
related.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So after that, I learned about several opportunities within the U.S. government. One of them was called the Presidential Management Fellowship. I don't know if you've heard of that, but you can apply in your last year of grad school, and it just basically gets you into the federal government writ large. Then I found my way to the State Department in the Office of Civil Rights in the State Department, where I was working on disability issues. And then there was a program to switch over to the Foreign Service, so I did, and now in this position, looking at human rights issues, I feel like it's a good combination of government work and social work, learning about all kinds of issues that people have, and yeah. So it's been a great journey. My first post was in the Philippines, so I did consular work in the Philippines. I have 2 children. My son was actually born there, so that's an interesting thing for him. And then I went to Cabo Verde, which is off the west coast of Senegal. It's an island in Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, and then third tour is here. And absolutely, did it pick me or I picked it? I picked Armenia.
Yeah.
That's
a good thing to know.
Growing up, I had Armenian friends.
Yeah.
And I'd always been
those
interested.
friends.
As you know, there's just an amazing diaspora, and a lot of people that have a lot of love for Armenia and are willing and want to spread that love for Armenia around the world. So I already had a lot of interest already. So when that opportunity came up, I really wanted to come here to experience the country and to see all the wonderful things that people talk about.
I bet they've told you so many things about Armenia because when I was an exchange student back in 2001, 2002, I was like, whenever people were asking me, where are you from? Armenia, Albania, Armenia, Romania. I'm like, okay, wait a second. I have a map. I just happen to have a map in my pocket. Take out. You see this little spot on the map? This is Armenia. And then it goes with all the history and everything. So I could picture everything you were telling.
I'll tell you, my non-Armenian friends now all know where Armenia is. My family, my mother's been here a few times.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we all, my friends and extended family now all love Armenia.
So, speaking of your family, I wanted to ask you what kind of, so since we're talking about July 4th and celebrations, and since you've traveled around the world like this, what are some of the July 4th traditions that you've had back in the States? And like, how did your family celebrate Independence Day? And what was maybe the most memorable celebration of July 4th outside of the States? Because you've been traveling for this much time with your family. Kind of curious, what are some of your traditions?
Okay, that's a great question. And, as you know, America is so huge and so many different groups and traditions, and, it all becomes together. And I love that part of the United States. I love all the diversity that comes with the United States and the different traditions that people bring. But that means that not everybody celebrates any holiday the same way, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Or Independence Day. But for my family, when I was young, I grew up in the Midwest, in Kansas. So I was actually born in Nashville, Tennessee, because my father is a country music singer.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
He legit always wears a cowboy hat, like.
That's nice. I used to live in Asheville, and not in Nashville, but in Asheville, which was not too far, so in North Carolina, and there was always this connection between Nashville and Asheville.
Yeah, the country roots, and it's
high
it's
country,
interesting.
high country,
Virginia,
high country.
Mountain Mama.
Let's sing that. I can. My kids love that song too.
Allow me to interrupt you with this little song, and we'll be back right after our break. Excuse me, to continue our conversation with our guest Summer, and also more information on July 4th, Independence Day in the United States. Stay tuned. This is the Great American Weekend, and we are here with my co-hosts Hazva QT, Master Steve, and
Ina
MK.
We'll be back.
Stay tuned.
Hello?
Hi, is your refrigerator running?
No, it doesn't have any legs.
Some American jokes just don't work with foreigners.
This is the Great American Weekend, and we were back with our guest from the U.S. Embassy. And we've got lots of questions prepared for Summer. hope you like them so far.
Let's give her a chance to finish answering
sure.
Hazva's question.
As you can tell, I like to talk, so.
That's good. We like guests who like to talk.
So, my father is a country music singer. I was born in Nashville. So I remember some of those traditions there in Tennessee, which revolved around, again, home fireworks. I was smaller, so we would just have kind of with my nuclear family, my brother, mother, and father, small celebrations with kind of barbecue and just the little
Roman
candlers, sparklers.
Yeah,
exactly. So very fond memories of that. One of the best things about any holiday, I think, is that it's when your family and friends come together, right? And so thinking about holidays and remembering those nice moments with family where everybody was home and together, and I think I have a lot of fond memories of that. In Kansas, I lived in it. So my father has a farm in Kansas, so that's where we moved from Nashville to Kansas, where he currently lives and continues to be, a cowboy with cows and horses and the whole thing. But it's little towns, so it's small town living, and the little towns would take a lot of pride in being able to provide the people of the town with a nice fireworks show. So in those types of situations, we would go to little villages. You take a blanket, you sit with your family, you bring snacks, and the towns would do, maybe 20 minutes of fireworks and bands, and a very nice kind of celebration.
Did you ever have a carnival that would be like the traveling carnival that would come specifically during July 4th? I remember in my hometown there are these kind of like with these small like rides, and with like the water gun games, and then the slide. There was a slide, I remember, something called the Gravitron, where it like spins. And
the Gravitron.
Do you remember?
Oh yeah.
Gravitron.
Oh yeah, the Gravitron. Yeah.
You too?
Oh yeah, Gravitron.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. So that was also, that's a July 4th memory for me as well. And the Zeppelis, the fried dough with the sugar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah.
Zeppelis, or there's other names for them. Like my husband's from Ohio, they call them elephant ears.
Yeah.
Elephant ears, okay.
I found them.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys just connected on that.
That's what my host family treated me during one of those farm shows that we visited back in during my exchange year. So I remember
and probably the closest.
ears.
Yeah, and probably the closest thing to those here are the punchiks.
Punchiks, but without the filling. Yeah, the cream.
Where were you in the U.S.?
Indiana. There is more than corn in Indiana. I remember that poster.
Well, of course, there have to be people there to farm the corn.
And did you also experience those kind of small town fireworks? And
Yeah.
blankets?
It was really fun. The hayride, I remember. It was so much fun.
Yeah, and so then, of course, since I've joined the State Department and have gone overseas, it's been very interesting to be involved with Independence Day celebrations at various embassies. So, of course, that's one of the points of pride for any U.S. embassy abroad, where you get to share, the national day of the country and some of the food and some of the music. So this year, we will also have a celebration at the U.S. Embassy. And let me tell your listeners that we have a band. It's a Motown band that will be performing at the embassy.
When?
For the public, they will be performing on the Cascade on July 3rd at 8 p.m. And anybody is more than welcome to come. So the name of the band is Giselle Jackson and the Raphael Ressing Band.
Oh,
I think I heard about this.
So everybody's invited.
We should have invited them to our show.
Yeah. I'll
How
see
long
if
are they going to
Can we do that?
Sure, we can see. But yeah, so that's going to be another. In the past, I think last year we had some jazz, and this is another way to introduce Armenians who might not be so familiar with Motown music, which is a rich American tradition as well. So yeah, that should be great.
And we will post this information in the Great American Weekend group, so that our audience and the listeners be aware of that.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should be a great time for everybody. The most memorable one I'm going to say, though, is because Cabo Verde, it's a very tiny island. It's pretty remote, but it's beautiful. And so a few years ago, I was there, and it's just so incredible because it was such a small kind of community. We were able to invite so many people. And I just remember at one point, a lot of the diasporan Americans who would come back, in the embassy, we were all singing some patriotic U.S. songs. It was just one of those beautiful moments where you think, wow,
I remember I heard one of those songs during the 4th of July. My exchange, I'm getting kind of nostalgic here. It's like, proud to be an American.
Lee Greenwood.
Yeah.
He has other songs, but nobody really listens to them anymore. It's just that one song.
Yeah, it's an interesting. At this time of year, it's interesting.
Summer Jan.
Yes.
Since you're soon going back home, right? I'd like to ask you name 5 things you'd like to take back home from Armenia with you. Like, it can be people, it can be items, it can be emotions, whatever comes to your mind.
Woo, only 5.
You can you can list more. It's okay.
Well, part of this lifestyle that my family and I have is that we move a lot. So I know, and my kids know, that unfortunately we're not going to be able to take actual physical things with us.
Yeah.
But, the fact that my children, they're 9 and 7 now, but they had 3 years of their life here. They almost identify as Armenian, so they will
Armenianized.
they will always take with them, and as I will, these traditions that happen in Armenia, like just the thing that I always say is the overwhelming generosity of almost every Armenian that you meet. My kids will grow up knowing that, to be hospitable like an Armenian, you open your door, you have people come in, you give them so much food they could never possibly eat it.
Always like visiting grandma's house.
Yeah, and just kind of that openness and that sense, and this is what I love about taking my kids to different places too, but that sense that no one is a stranger, that when you open your door to them and they come in your house, they become part of your family. And I think that's a really amazing thing that almost all Armenians share. They do that, and that's something that we will definitely take with us. We're also physically taking a lot of the cognac.
Yeah.
Mostly my husband.
I love it. Like, by the way, we're a huge fan of the cognac.
It's really special around the world, of course.
You can buy toys and clothes anywhere else in the world, but Armenian cognac.
I would probably do the same thing. I would just fill a case with like cognacs and duduks.
Yeah, the duduks, the music.
It'd just be like, yo, guys, here's one for you. Here's one for you. Here's one for you. I just came from Armenia. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. I'm bringing a lot of souvenirs back to my family, and Armenian flags and those types of things, because once we come somewhere and we live somewhere for 3 years, it really is part of our history and our home, and we will definitely miss it. So, and there are 1,000 people I wish I could take too, but you probably don't know them, so I won't name them.
Pick me.
Do you know where you're off to next?
It's a very interesting place that I'm off to next. So we'll be in DC for a little bit for training and to see family. And then we are going to a tiny little island in the Pacific called Micronesia.
Wow.
Oh my God.
There's an embassy out there with about 12 Americans. So it will be a totally different experience.
Wow.
And you'll have a 10.
What an experience.
So this life is very interesting in the sense that, you get to see so many different perspectives and countries. And my kids grew up speaking Portuguese in Cabo Verde. They've completely forgotten it. But now they speak a little bit Armenian. But again, that idea that you can go... The world is small, you can go different places. And,
yeah, that's for sure.
And this is, I always say this, but one thing I've learned that, I've lived in the United States, Asia, in the Philippines, Africa, now Armenia, then I'll go back to my... Most people, there are some cultural differences, right? Of course, there's food, there's music, there's history, there's, traditions. But those core kind of like values, no matter where you go, I really always think that those core values, you can find them in almost every human being. They love their family, they love their history, they love their culture, they want to make friends,
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Go ahead.
Well, I was curious. I mean, to go along with this, the independence theme that we're going with, and also to tie it in with you as a human rights officer and with your background in
social work.
I wanted to ask you about, since this is kind of like a celebration of the Revolutionary War, or the Independence Day after the Revolutionary War for the United States. So that's really kind of what is being celebrated. It's independence from empirical rule from Great Britain. I would want to know, not necessarily we could talk about historical stuff. We spoke about historical stuff earlier in the show, but I wanted to ask you, if in the States there was any type of revolution that would be needed now from the human rights perspective, what would you say that would be?
It's an interesting question. I'm sure almost everybody could have a different take on that. But, just thinking about it in the world and we all see negative things on Facebook and in media. And, I think that there could be a revolution of more love and kindness and understanding.
Revolution.
Oh my gosh, I think you just came up with the slogan. So
2020.
I feel like there's some songs that go with that theme as well.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
We
But
could
anyway,
find
yeah.
something.
So what would a love revolution look like? Because it's so there's some
Didn't we have that already? Wasn't that what the hippies were all about? No, I'm just
because I was jokingly talking about like human rights, like the human rights being someone that is actually being like focused on human wrongs, like it's about defending people's ability to find justice against that which is wronging them, or not against their own rights. So I guess what would that love revolution look like for the States? Because I remember this graphic that I think it was Steve that showed me, or no, someone else had shared. It showed the divisiveness of the American Senate over the years, going from people being kind of crossing the aisle to really being divided. It's totally being camped out. And I'm curious as to what can happen to bring everyone together now, because there's everyone's so separated, or at least that's how it appears from afar. What would that love revolution look like?
Tough question. It's $1 million question.
Am I putting you on the spot? I'm sorry.
No. Okay. I mean, I don't know exactly. I think that there's intention. I think that's a big part of it. Like, for anybody, and not just the United States, all over the world. If anybody has the intention to learn about the other, whoever they perceive to be the other, any sort of minority group to which they do not belong, I think intention is a big part of it. If anybody goes into something saying, I'm going to learn about this other person's perspective, why they're behaving the way that they are, because I also learned, I believe most people think they're right on any side of the issue. Most people firmly believe that they are correct.
Forgiveness.
Human rights.
Yeah, but understanding the perspective and having the intention to understand why someone's coming from a perspective, I think would go a long way in having a tolerance and kindness and love
empathy.
revolution.
It sounds like it's a revolution, an empathetic revolution.
I love it. Let's do it.
Let's start right now.
I'm in. Sign me up. I'm in.
And again, I think that's part of what I'm trying to teach my children, but also like going from place to place, you again learn that people are coming from one viewpoint because of reasons,
Yeah.
So trying to understand people's viewpoints, I think, is important.
Great, thank you. What about the celebration of next month, State Department anniversary?
Excellent question.
Thank you.
So the State Department is celebrating its 230th year.
Wow.
Because this year is the 243rd celebration of the United States and the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and the 200th anniversary of the State Department. So in 1789, the first Secretary of State was Thomas Jefferson. So the State Department plans on having a variety of sessions and kind of ways to highlight the role of the State Department for the past 230 years across the world. And there's going to be a lot of different activities coming up for the next year.
Right.
But so the kickoff will be July 29th, and the Secretary of State, Pompeo, as far as I understand, is planning to have some sessions that of course, I'm sure we can get to you, and we'll be broadcast live.
Will you be here still?
I'm gone. But the State Department continues.
Summer, we're gonna make you come back.
By all means, I would love to come back. Yeah, it's a
From
great
that
place.
island.
You come visit me.
Well, here's something that I was thinking about talking about later in the show, but maybe you want to address it a little bit. So how old is the United States? We're celebrating how many years of independence? 243. And how many years has the State Department been around?
230.
Why the difference?
I think everybody was kind of trying to figure out.
I literally had the same thought. I was like, wait, what's the difference? And then I was like, oh, they were creating an entirely new country inside of like the new world.
Right.
And I was just imagining myself thinking like George Washington, a bunch of old guys coming from the, like the Europe being like, all right, so how do we do this thing? It's like, I don't know. Let's write some stuff down on a page. It's like, okay, let's do that. And
yeah, because 1775, the war starts, right? 1777 is the Declaration of Independence. The war ends in, oops. I've got a note for that.
Is it
someplace, but
1776, my friend.
1776.
Yeah. I have the note as well.
Wait, when does the war end?
But the Declaration of Independence, 1776.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
But
and then, of course, there was no real federal government.
yeah, I
right
think they were
away.
figuring everything out for those few years.
The Articles of Confederation before the Constitution and all that kind of. So I mean, it's one of those things we tend to collapse all of that into, one day, 1 year, or whatever. But it took a long time.
It took a long time. Yeah,
A decade.
and it was a divisive
More.
thing, right? Not all the members, not all people living in those 13 colonies of the United States in 1776 were like, let's go.
Yeah.
There were definitely, people that thought that the United States should stay as part of Britain, and so yeah. I think
The
that's
Loyalists
interesting
and the
too.
Patriots, the two different groups. I mean, they started in May with the Constitutional Convention. I think they started in May with trying to vote on declaring independence. And then they didn't do it until the beginning of July. And then they wrote the Declaration of Independence and then finalized it. And I think it was published on July 4th or July 5th. That's why, but it had been building up for a couple of months already.
Right.
And the war had already started, really.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting, yeah. Yeah, and where the United States started 243 years ago versus where we are now is just, it's incredible to think about all those changes, and, especially the great minds that, worked to persuade other people, that wrote this document that we still use today as a guideline. And of course, what everybody always talks about is that they were the four founders were wise to call it the inevitable truth of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not necessarily the guarantee of happiness,
The pursuit.
but the
Approaching.
pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
And that word liberty in between there, right? And that was basically what the rallying call was, that people wanted to be free. They wanted to have their liberty. They didn't want to feel like they had to answer to someone who was not responsive to their needs as well. So.
Well, thank you so much, Summer. We have a short break, and then we'll come back for our last piece, enjoying our dear guests in our studio. So stay tuned. For those of you guys who just tuned in, this is the Great American Weekend with Hazva QT Master Steve and myself.
Ina MK
Yeah.
and our guest, Summer Bessire-Briers.
Yeah. Stay tuned. We've got a lot of interesting stuff to share with you.
Ina, what would make America great again?
More barbecue.
No, we need more freedom. That's what'll make it great.
Join us on Great American Weekend.
And help us solve all of America's problems.
Every show is recorded by the NSA and sent to the White House.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend. We're enjoying our guests, and also we chat between the breaks, and we've got some moments of honesty here, which are really touching. I think that eventually we will make Summer come back here soon sometime.
Please.
So I have a question for you. Do you think what do you think? What does a person need to be independent? We spoke about independence a lot. So what about an individual? Freedom, independence, is it the same or not? And yeah, kind of like evolve around this.
I feel like I probably need to drink a lot of wine and take a lot of time.
Wine to the studio, please.
I feel like we could stay up all night and discuss these topics.
Thank you for reminding me.
No, it's a very interesting question, and I appreciate that you ask it. And I think it's something that like we all should think about, because I think it's interesting and it touches people in different ways. But just, thinking about it
the
now.
first thought. Yeah, that.
Independence and freedom. I believe that a lot of human beings, almost every human being on this planet, wants to be able, every adult, wants, children too, but they can't, wants to be able to steer their own life, right? To be able to say that, well, I feel like this job is not good for me anymore, I should find another job. Or to say, this town is not working for me anymore, or be able to pursue, I'll go ahead with that, pursue their own happiness.
Bring it full circle. I like that.
Why reinvent the wheel? But having some agency and feeling like there's choice in life, that no one is dictating things, that there is the ability to live your life without somebody else telling you how to do it. Except for kids, I tell my kids what to do.
This is the exact dictionary definition. Because I recently looked up the definition of freedom just so I can know how it's actually defined. And it's literally defined as having the ability to act or change without restraint. Very simply, so simple, and it's beautiful because it incorporates all. It incorporates all.
Which is why I more and more dislike the word freedom. And I prefer the word autonomy, but that's okay. That's a discussion for a different time.
Yeah,
maybe.
that's the wine and all night and the difference between a time.
Couple candles.
and the red couch.
Going down a different path than I meant.
It's like whoa, red couch of truth.
Well, speaking of choice, I had some really, I don't know, we're questioning you like we invited God in the studio, but,
Well, she does work for the U.S. Embassy.
What do you think, Sommer?
The NSA is listening.
Do we, as human beings, do we really deserve a freedom of choice?
Do we deserve the freedom of choice? I say yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Human rights. Human rights.
Yay! Of course.
Yeah.
Wait,
absolutely.
it depends on what you want to do with your choice.
Within the bounds of some things,
like
right?
if it's within your own, if you're not like treading on someone else.
Without infringing on other people's rights, right?
Don't tread on me.
Yeah, there's an interesting, but yes, and again, I think that's what people want. I think there's kind of an innate thing, as I've seen in tiny little villages in Kansas, to tiny little villages in Africa. People want to have their own choices. People want to be able to make their own decisions. I think it's part of what makes us human beings. People want to, be able to express themselves in the way that they feel comfortable. So, yeah, I think so.
Thank you. There is still hope. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners. Have you experienced any cultural shocks in Armenia when you first came here?
Interesting question.
If you can recall something funny, maybe weird, interesting.
Or like things that are like totally different that you find very endearing.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, you mentioned the dedupe. The music, I think, is very, very interesting, right? And I think unique to this region. And it will be something that we will remember as being unique here. But not only...
Depends on what music.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, but it's interesting because, like...
Discluding Robbie's.
I mean, that's the thing.
Oh, come on.
As an American, you don't know what that is. Like, I didn't even know what Rabis was, even though I'm Armenian back in the States, because my exposure was limited, different, and not, so my exposure, I thought of all the Rabis as like, oh, this is Armenian music, this is what it's like. There's no real judgment in that.
Well, if you would like to know, Rabis comes from the Russian word рабочее искусство, which means working class music, which means not really like a high class music. This is what it comes from originally. So, yeah.
I mean, with enough horovats and enough vodka, even Rabis is good.
It's so good.
Here we are.
It's so good.
Hey.
We can philosophize, listen to music.
The first culture shock I had was like seeing how like multiple people would pick up someone else's kid and like help them with like and it was just like,
That's
oh my
nice.
God.
That's
Everyone, because like in the state, in New York, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Don't touch my child.
They would be
Don't
like,
touch my
pedophile.
child.
Like they would just be like, what are you doing? And then here, just like, hey, can you? Yeah, sure, not a problem.
Come on.
Like,
Yeah.
I like several times would imagine a New York situation in like an Armenian like enactment.
Right.
And it just would end up with like some kind of lawsuit or like police being called.
There are no strange children, okay? There's like strangers' children.
There's a big village feeling here.
It is, yeah. It's very safe. That was a almost immediate feeling that like, oh, the kids can walk around. On your point, I remember being shocked the first time that somebody, stranger, kind of an old man, gave my kids candy. I was like, oh,
What is
I
that?
was like, that's fine. He was giving it to everybody. And
Speaking of safety, our previous
No,
show was about safety. So
Safety.
yeah, we've covered that. And Summer Jam, we've got like 1 minute before we say bye bye to you. So what would you like to say before you go? Maybe to Armenia, maybe to our show, maybe anything.
Thank you guys very much for the opportunity to come and talk about the United States, the State Department, and me, which is an interesting, rare treat, kind of. I really appreciate that. Yeah, and just to take the moment, I might cry, though. I might cry. But to say that this country has been really good to me and to my kids, and, we will always remember the culture and the amazing things and the amazing friends that we've made here. So, yeah, Armenia will be in my heart and my kids' hearts, and we will take Armenia to Micronesia and everywhere else around the world. So
and off we are to a faraway island now.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to have you on, Summer. Really.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. And I think we're gonna cry all together and have a group hug during this advertisement break. Armenia, America, cultures, connecting people, the Great American Weekend special issue. Stay tuned. We're gonna be back soon. Thank you once again for coming, and hope we see you back here.
Summer Bessire-Briers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
I would never live in America.
Why not? Didn't you enjoy your time there?
Yeah, why not?
It was good, but it wasn't great.
Because you didn't know us when you were there.
Join Ina MK, Master Steve, and Hazva QT for a great American experience.
Every Saturday on the Great American Weekend.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend here on Radio Vaughn. I am Master Steve. I've got Hazva QT next to me and Ina MK across from me.
Yeah, Hazva, you always get a double love here in between.
I feel double love.
Yeah. It was an exciting episode because, it was quite emotional, I think.
I'm already I don't know. I don't have words to describe the fluctuation of feelings that I'm going through right now. Independence and freedom.
And love for Armenia. It's amazing.
Autonomy. Autonomy.
And I think this fusion is what our show is about. And now we're ready to welcome Master Steve with his education and
I don't know how much like slang there is revolving around the 4th of July, but just ideas and terms and stuff like that. One of the big ones, and we've used it already on the show today, is the Founding Fathers. Right? And the Founding Fathers is a way of referring to the people who set up the United States. Names that even Armenians are familiar with to a certain extent. John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, who a lot of people have heard about.
It's all about the Benjamins.
Yeah, Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, George Washington. So these are the guys who were. George Washington was a general, and a lot of these guys were kind of Renaissance men to a certain extent. They were businessmen, they were politicians, they were political scientists, they were very well read. So these are the Founding Fathers of the United States. Then we also have a phrase, no taxation without representation, which was one of the big kind of catalysts for the American Revolutionary War, the War for Independence. There were the French Indian War was going on in North America, where the British were fighting against the French over territory in North America, and the American colonists in the British colonies were contributing soldiers to the fight, and the Brits back in Europe were contributing money. And after the war, each side were kind of looking at each other and saying, and this is part of, there's a lot of things that build up to the American Revolutionary War, but this is one of them, or one of them that I think is more important. The Brits back in England and Europe were saying, hey, we spent all of this money on this war, and so you guys, the colonists, need to pay us back. And the colonists were saying, we and our sons fought, and some of them died in this war. We don't owe you anything, but to try to make the colonies more profitable, the Brits started increasing taxes on the colonies. And one of the taxes was a tea tax. There was a paper tax because they wanted to get money out of the colonies. That was one of the reasons to have colonies, was so that you could get money out of it. And the Americans who were to become the Americans, the colonists living in the British colonies, they said, well, wait a second. You in Parliament in England are passing laws to tax us, and we have no say over any of this.
Exploiting.
This isn't right. And they did have, the colonies had their own charters, which acted kind of like constitutions. They had their own assemblies. They had, in the different towns had their own town councils. They had their own government. But what they were able to do was limited. And basically anything that, London said, they had to follow. So no taxation without representation was a big, kind of catalyst for this. And the Redcoats, the Redcoats were a reference to the British soldiers who wore red uniforms, which is another funny thing. We have
red hats.
Yeah, which is another funny thing. You think about, the British Army wore bright red coats. That makes no sense in today's world. But back then it did, because people didn't hide when they fought in wars. You would line up in a battlefield across from one another and shoot at each other. There was no element of surprise. There was no hiding in the woods and popping out.
Just like our couch.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Here's part of the reason why the colonists had an advantage, is because they didn't fight by those regular rules. They were doing what would be kind of considered guerrilla warfare these days. They would pop out and attack the British soldiers when they weren't ready for it. And this was seen as kind of unfair and an ungentlemanly way to fight a war. Let's see, Yankees, and this is a slang term that outsiders use to refer to Americans in general.
Isn't it offending?
Even in Armenia, they use it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Is it an offending form of
It is a
saying
little bit. It is a little bit offensive. So outside the U.S., the Brits would refer to the American colonists as the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
In the U.S. now, even now, but especially during the Civil War,
It's used for baseball.
Yeah, they would call the Northerners Yankees.
We're ready for a break, but we'll come back soon, and we will continue with slang words because
And a
we
little bit
need
of history.
we need education nowadays. Dear Steve, stay tuned. The Great American Weekend.
What's the best word in American English?
My all-time favorite word is but I usually refer to it as lovemaking.
Become more fluent in American English and slang.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend. We're talking about Independence Day and fireworks and the origins of America's birth, the birth of a nation.
We are.
The birth of a nation. That's that's a song. The youth of the nation.
The youth of the nation, right?
The euthanasian.
Euthanasian.
That's going sideways right there.
Let's go back to classic language.
So we were just doing some slang terminology, and we ended off on the Yankees and Master Steve.
New York Yankees.
The New York Yankees. Oh my God! I'm not a baseball fan, but the continuous winning that these guys have been doing is kind of uncanny, and partially.
I know the other side of that. I'm from Minnesota. We have the Minnesota Twins. They're continuously losing.
Oh, I'm a basketball fan, so I know what that is like from the Knicks. God, oh my God. Okay.
Which still blows my mind because the Yankees have all of this money because they're in New York. That's why they can afford to have a team that wins all the time. I remember several years ago going to a Twins game in Minnesota, and it was there were like two of the starting players for the Yankees. Each one of them individually made as much as the 9 other starting players for the Twins.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got 2 guys on the team that are making twice as much as all of the starters on the other team. And of course, the Twins got, whooped.
Yeah, I think with the NBA's salary caps kind of add into the strategy of how they work it out. But either way, at this point, we're at a place where from Yankees we move into we're moving from the way up in. Well, actually, Yankees
from
are
Yankees
just straight
to Gringos.
Yeah,
from
out. Let's skip that one for now.
From Yankees to Gringos, where's that?
And Yankees, I mean, it would to a certain extent the term Yankee. It is not usually an endearing term, The Brits would talk about the Yankees and as being kind of dismissive, and the Southerners in the U.S. around the time of the Civil War would talk about the Northerners. It would be kind of insulting. Okay, now it's just a name. It's just a term. New England it refers to New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Vermont, and Maine. So basically New England, it's the states on the East Coast north of New York, right? And then you've got the original colonies. How many original colonies?
13
original colonies.
I'm from America.
You get an A+. A+.
I know something about the United States.
New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, Carolina, and Georgia. And Carolina, of course, was later divided into both North and South Carolina.
And of course, the best of all those original colonies was of New York.
New
just
York,
officially.
which at one point,
was
at one
about
point
to be the capital. Was the New York?
Yeah, they thought of. Well, I mean, they didn't know. I mean, they thought Philadelphia, because Philadelphia was where a lot of the stuff in the Revolutionary War happened. That's where the
they don't pay attention to a singing woman.
Philadelphia is where the Declaration of Independence was signed. It's where the second.
Yeah, 13 colonies.
Yeah. The Philadelphia was where this Declaration of Independence was signed. Most of the government was started there, and it was basically like the central beginning place of the entire American colonies.
Well, but I mean, then there's Boston too. I mean, Paul Revere's Ride and all of that. I think the fighting, if I remember right, started closer to Boston.
And the Tea Party was there too.
The Boston Tea Party, which. They dumped a bunch of tea into the harbor because to protest to protest the tea taxes.
You damn Brits.
Yeah. So now, the American flag, and Flag Day was just recently. It's in June. Flag Day. The original American flag had 13 stars and 13 stripes. The little blue square in the corner with 13 stars in it in a circle. And 13 stripes alternating red and white. And they added a star for every additional state. Early on, they added a stripe for each state as well.
Yeah.
And I forget when exactly they stopped doing that, but they thought this is just getting ridiculous. We'll go back to 13. Too many stripes. Too many stripes. It's going to make it too difficult to make.
They're going to be too thin to see.
Designed for manufacturability. That's not
by
at all.
By the way, listen, can we make a deal about these stripes and the flag? We want 50 stripes and you want 50 stars. Why don't we keep the original 13? And then
it's going to cost so much to make this flag with 50 stripes on it. It's already so expensive because of the 50 stars.
Why don't we cut a deal? We keep it at the original 13. The price. Then we do the stars, the little stars that you want.
And you know what? I've got 50 quotes here that are waiting for their turn.
Let's move on to the quotes.
Well, okay, not 50, but let me start my
13.
regular quote segment and with our boys discussion. So let's go. America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, on immigration. Imagination and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. Harry S. Truman.
I would love to actually say that your Freudian slip of immigration speaks to the mass genocide and killings of many Native Americans that existed on the
immigration? No, that's something else. It's not
because America was founded on courage. Yes, after the many Europeans populated the land, but the many years prior to that was founded solely upon the mass killing and basically diseasing of all these native peoples that live there. So it really must be said.
Oh, put down your Howard Zinn and read some real history, please.
This is the real freedom of speech, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so speaking of freedom, freedom is not won on the battlefields. The change for freedom is won there. The final battle is won or lost in our hearts and minds. Helen Gahagan Douglas.
Another interesting part here about the battle for the hearts and minds. This was the main script used by George Bush Jr., George W. Bush, when they went into invade Iraq for the second time because of weapons of mass destruction that proved not to actually be present. And so the war was actually for the hearts and minds of the people of Iraq, and that was the main drumming point that the campaign, Donald Rumsfeld, George W. Bush were saying, where they wanted to actually use propaganda and use the idea of bringing freedom from dictatorship of Saddam Hussein that was ironically installed there by the CIA and supported by the CIA during the 1980s when they were fighting a war with Iran. So it was.
He wasn't installed.
It wasn't installed, but it was supported.
Yeah,
it was supported. Yeah.
Well, which at the time was a better choice than having, an Islamic revolution there and having another theocratic state similar to Iran.
And before we go on an advertisement break, I have another quote about freedom.
Before we pay the
bills. Hearts and minds. That's
there
what
is
it
another
reminds
one about freedom. Freedom is fragile and must be protected. To sacrifice it, even as a temporary measure, is to betray it.
Oof.
Yeah.
Wow.
Germaine Greer.
Hence, the NSA PRISM program is something that really needs to be taken a look at by the public.
And this is a really cultural and a fun one. I want to read this one. America is a tune. It must be sung together. Gerald
we don't have time for me to read a poem, do we?
Country,
because I've got a couple of poems queued up, but I'll share them on the Facebook.
30 seconds to sing together. Decide now.
No,
what are we gonna sing?
Let's go out. No, let's go out with
say
poem.
Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's "The Midnight Ride" of Paul Revere's "Ride."
Yes.
Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75. Hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, if the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church Tower as a signal light, one if by land and two if by sea.
Wow, you made it. Music break.
Oh, say, can you see?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed?
Adamast, what are you doing?
He's trying not to forget where he came from.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend here on Radio Von 103.1 FM, Yerevan, Armenia.
And we have the movie character here sitting.
For those of you that are just listening on the air,
what's that?
You're missing out.
What's that thing? What's that thing you're wearing, Steve? Because
it says Steven.
It's got my name on it.
We got the captain of the football team right here, 5-time conference champions.
No, 5-time. I wish. So we pre-recorded the show for this, and the reason we did that is because instead of being live on air tonight, I am actually celebrating I'm celebrating my daughter's graduation from high school.
Congratulations, Daniela.
Yeah, congratulations. And congratulations, to all the students of IBE who are graduating today.
Yeah.
And so it got me reminiscing and thinking about, my high school experience and everything. And the funny thing is, this jacket, for those of you that don't know what a letterman's jacket is, in high school, in American high schools, you can letter in different activities, competitive activities usually. And lettering means that you've met certain requirements to show that you're an exceptional athlete leader. Or that sort of thing. And then you get this little thing, if you can see,
it says S-A.
On this one it's S and a little T and an A. Mm-hmm. And this is my letter, right? And it's St. Anthony High School. Mm-hmm. In St. Anthony Village,
was that
Minnesota.
A private?
No, it was public.
School?
It was a public school. Yeah, St. Anthony Village was the name of the town. And so once you do that, you get this letter thing, and you can put it on a jacket or whatever. I mean, if any of you guys have watched Happy Days or American Graffiti, you've seen these things: the Letterman sweater, the Letterman jacket.
Oh, we've seen a lot of them in American movies. Yeah.
So, and then on this side, it's got 95, which would be the year I graduated from high school. And then all the bars showing all the other times that I lettered, right? And over here, it's got the sports that I lettered in, football and speech, if you can call that a sport.
Wow, what is that, speech?
Speech? It's a
master of speech.
Yeah, no. It's a competitive activity, and they've got different categories like persuasive speaking and extemporaneous speaking, and you go and you give speeches, and there are judges, and they judge you, and and you compete, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so, this is my letter
And what are
jacket.
the stars about?
The stars, that would be for being the captain of a team.
Stars.
Yeah.
We've got the captain of the football team in the radio studio.
And I've got this jacket here, actually, in Armenia, not because I brought it. My kids found it in my parents' basement a few years ago when we were back visiting, and they said, "Oh, that's so neat looking. Can we take it?" I said, "Well, yeah. What are you going to do with it?" And we're going to wear it.
Yeah, I would
We're
wear
gonna
that.
wear
I
it.
would wear that.
And I don't know
Looks
if I've
cool.
had this on, at least not in public, since 1995.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I haven't. No, I really haven't worn
Wow.
it.
So it's like 20. Wait.
A long time.
We're not gonna get it. 24 years. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I feel so old. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
How time passes.
Yeah.
I can't even reminisce like that. I don't have any markings from my high school at all. I mean, I have maybe some artwork that I did because I was really into art. I did football for 1 year.
And you were Master of Art.
I was. I don't know if I was a master, but
Yeah,
like I did
you
the.
were, yeah, come on.
I would say I was very interested in it. I loved doing it, and I did American football. I did football for 1 year. I was a right tackle, and I really wasn't that good. And I remember one of my teammates was a senior who approached me and said and asked me, "Aramast, tell us about the new flesh that is coming in this year as a freshman," because I was a freshman that year in school, and they wanted to know about like the young girls and the cute girls, and I was so like taken aback by that I was like, nah, football's not my thing. I'm gonna hang out in the art room from now on. So I kind of I hung out in the art room. I was working with pastels and watercolors, and so my trophies would be the watercolors and the pastel work and the drawings that I did during those years. But other than that,
Yeah, but what kind of a high school did you go to?
I went to a public high school that had about maybe maximum 600 people, and it was located in Rockland County, which was about 30 minutes away from New York City. And it was kind of it would be like an American public high school experience.
I went to
I went to private school in
Really?
America, and my graduation was in America. So all my memories of graduation.
How many were in your graduating class?
How many people?
Yeah.
Well, not many, because it was Lakeland Christian Academy, and we were like maybe 50 of us.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was the youngest senior among my classmates.
Because in the U.S. you usually graduate when you're 18.
Yeah, and I was 16.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I experienced everything: the prom, the party, and then our trip. Wow, we have a caller. Yeah, but keep.
Okay. Yeah, so my school, part of the reason why I was able to, in fact, almost had to be so involved in all sorts of different things in the school is because my school was so small. It was 350 kids, roughly, in 4 grades.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking less than 100. I think my graduating class, we graduated just under 50 or around 50 students. But it was right outside of Northeast Minneapolis. So it was a small school district. If I remember right, it was like 1.5 miles by 1 mile in area.
Wow.
It was really tiny.
That's really small, yeah.
And a lot of the people living there were senior citizens whose kids had gone to the school, 20 years before and graduated. And so it was a very small school. But it was surrounded by other bigger schools. Just to the north, I had some friends that went to Irondale, and they must have had 200 kids per class. Per grade in the high school.
Wow.
So in order to just field a football team, everybody who wanted to play could play. You know, as long as you stuck with it, you were on the team.
That was kind of like my experience too. All the other schools around us were like maybe like 1,500, like, you know, maybe even more. You know, it was like a ridiculous amount that I couldn't really fathom because the school that I was in was it was much more like intimate family kind of feeling to it.
Yeah, if I would have gone to a bigger school, I probably wouldn't have played football. I wouldn't have been involved in student government. I mean, there was a lot of, but because it was such a small school, if you were active, you were into all sorts of things.
And my academy that I was attending back in the U.S. Regarding sports, I wanted to become a cheerleader.
It's fantastic. We got the captain of the football team,
Cougars,
and the cheerleader.
Oh, you.
You were the Cougars. We were the Huskies.
And then
the St. Anthony Huskies.
You know what our team was?
I'm sorry. I had kind of a same experience like you had, Hazva, because I started this cheerleading thing and then I'm like, oh, this is not mine. I'm gonna hang out with the choir. And so we had a girl band. I was singing in a girl band which was called Evidence. And I was in the school choir, so that was my final choice.
What an experience. The artistic experience prevails.
Yeah, art people. There you go.
More than the cheerleading. Screw the Flying Dutchman.
Cougars.
We were called the Flying Dutchman.
The Flying Dutchman?
What does that even mean?
I don't know. It's like Notre Dame with the Boilermakers. Like, what the heck is a boil? I mean, I know it's a drink. I mean, you take a beer and you drop a whiskey into it, and that's a Boilermaker. But that can't be what they're referring to, right? The Flying Dutchman, what is that? It's not even a drink.
The symbol was a boat. Yeah, the symbol was a boat. Like it looked like a pirate ship.
Well, I mean, it is in pirate lore. There is the Flying Dutchman. Whose ship is that? Is it Davy Jones's ship?
Thank you.
I don't know. It's been a long time since I've watched.
Mystery solved.
We have a flying advertisement coming right at us.
Stay tuned on the Great American Weekend.
Thank you.
Hey, what kind of fixins do you like on your hot dog?
Fixins?
Yeah, relish, onions, mustard, ketchup, condiments.
No, not that.
Oh, fixins. I love chili dogs.
Learn about American cuisine on the Great American Weekend.
Welcome back to the Great American Weekend here on Radio Vaughn. And as always, we've got our calendar of events for the upcoming week to close out the show. At the Yerevan American Corner, as always, there will be the Debate Club this Thursday. Now, the date for this has changed. It used to be on Friday, but now they've changed it to Thursdays. Do you want to improve your English language skills and learn how to debate? Join the Debate Club every Thursday at 1 p.m. at the Yerevan American Corner for the Debate Club with Artem Tutujan. Intermediate level of English is required for participation. There's the Reading Club. If you enjoy a good story and want to expand your vocabulary as well as practice your listening and speaking skills, join the Yerevan American Corner Reading Club every Tuesday at 1 p.m. An intermediate level of English is required for that as well. There are topics for both of those things, and we will share those topics on our Facebook group when they are announced by the Yerevan American Corner. We also have the Teenage Club. The Yerevan American Corner invites all teenagers to their weekly Teenage Club where they can improve their English and learn more about American culture and lifestyle. There's no homework. There are no assignments.
Sounds like fun.
Games, discussions, group activities, and tons of fun. The club takes place every Friday at 2 p.m.
And also there is TOEFL IBT preparation course. The Yerevan American Corner, in cooperation with the U.S. Embassy, is starting a free TOEFL IBT preparation course. Classes will take place twice a week and will include a face-to-face session at the Yerevan American Corner and an online session. The duration of each session is 2 hours. The course will last from July 15th through August 25th. The course will be facilitated by Arusya Karutunyan, a CELTA certified teacher of English. The participants will be selected through a placement test. For more information, please visit Yerevan American Corner's Facebook page or call them and to find out more details. And now we're ready for movies in English at Kino Park Yerevan Mall with a special accent by Hazva.
Let me do this. So
You have to channel your Russianness.
yeah, so
There we go.
movies in English. Actually, let me introduce it myself. So now for movies in English with Russian subtitles at Kino Park Yerevan Mall, we have from 30th June to 6th of July, Annabelle Comes Home, and we have Men in Black International. And as well, another one with Will Smith, who was one of my favorite actors, Aladdin. So check the Kino Park page for more details during the week. And just remember, all English movies have Russian subtitles. Thank you very much.
I love the Will Smith part. It sounds really natural. Thank you. So we have live music.
So at Ulehanyan Club this week, we've got Mikhail Voskanyan and Friends on July 1st. That starts at 8:30. The Katil Band is playing on July 2nd. And a tribute to Miles Davis on July 3rd. And for our regular listeners, there are some familiar faces in that band, including Dave Giodakian and Arman, who we had on in the show a few episodes back. We have other live music events this coming week as well.
There is Ready to Shine by Sam Babayan with the Dirty Diamond Band at Comic Club, July 7th, starting at 9:30 p.m. Lucas Madoyan Blues Band at Mezzo Club, June 30th at 9:30 p.m. There's another concert by Aram MP3 live at Mezzo Music Club, July 2nd at 9 p.m. Iveta Mukuchan live at Club 12, June 30th at 9:30 p.m. And there is a studio. It is one of the Armenians' favorite Russian groups. The solo singer is from Georgia. So they're visiting Armenia, Yerevan, and they will be performing at Vin Music Hall July 4th at 8 p.m. There is State Jazz Orchestra of Armenia presenting a unique concert with famous jazz vocalist and trumpet player Ronald Baker from USA at Aram Khachatyan Concert Hall July 11th at 8 p.m. So make sure you reserve tickets beforehand. There is some art, LED art, performing arts cocktails on June 30th from 7 p.m. with several different artists, photography, theater, actors, sound artists, dancers, poetry, painting, photography, fashion. A lot of things to experience here. This unique atmosphere of art gallery located at Abovian 1 address. You'll be attending the performances while interacting with the artists. So make sure you don't miss this one. There is a Mental Magic Illusion show at Hamazgain State Theater, July 3rd at 7:30 p.m. Also July 5th, starting from 6:30 p.m. Celebrate Sun Day, not Sunday. Sun Day at Swan Lake. DJ Leo, Marbe, Jivan Khachatyan, Arevo Grigoryan, and Arpisha Nubarian. The evening will end up with Solar Surprise. So if you guys want to experience all of this, make sure you visit Swan Lake near the Opera House. This is all we had for tonight. This is all we had for this episode. We really enjoyed it. Enjoyed our guests sitting here in our studio chatting about America, independence, and also about her personal life, which was really precious.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening to our show, and hope to hear you, see you guys all, and listen, and have you guys listening to our show next week.
Yeah, at some point we need to get out and meet our listeners.
Yeah,
we're gonna do it sometime.
We should invite them.
Thank you, Master Steve. Thank you, Hazva QT, my faithful co-hosts, friends, and protectors. Wow. Have a safe end of the weekend. See you guys.
Thank you guys.
Meet you
and
guys.
Have a happy 4th of July.
Yeah. Bye-bye.